Okay, so so there's a lot of news, a lot of stuff going around about this Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. I just wanted to put in, some information on this. So essentially, what's been going on is ever since the Russians occupied the nuclear power plant back in March or April of 2022, the Ukrainians have been desperately trying to get it back. They've been also shelling the nuclear power plant with mortars and stuff like that periodically. This was a big problem around summer of last year. The Russians complained about it. The Atomic Energy Commission came and said basically that someone was shelling the power plant, but they wouldn't name the Ukrainians because they have a gun to their head, obviously. So the Ukrainians were saying that the Russians were shelling their own nuclear power plant, a power plant that they were occupying and using, which didn't make any sense. And the Western media, basically just parroted that narrative, just like at first the Western media blamed Russia for bombing the Nord Stream pipeline, when later on, now the Western media admits that there's no way Russia bombed the Nord Stream pipeline. Now they're trying to blame it on the Ukrainians, and they're trying to protect, the United States from being implicated. So there's this thing going now where a couple weeks ago, it started like a month ago, really, where you started to hear coming down the grapevine on these Ukrainian propaganda channels that, the Russians are going to sabotage all of these chemical factories in Crimea. Because, the Ukrainians are going to push into Crimea in their great counteroffensive, and then the Russians are going to, they've laced all these chemical factories in Crimea with explosives, and they're going to bomb them. So recently that narrative has shifted because I guess, since the counteroffensive or offensive of the Ukrainians, or whatever you want to call it, is not going so well, and they're never going to get to Crimea. Now they're saying, a few weeks ago, Zelensky's cokehead ass came out, and he started to say, oh, well, the Russians, we have intelligence that the Russians are going to sabotage the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant because they want to start a false flag for whatever reason. No one really can explain. Give a good explanation of how this false flag would benefit Russia. But they're saying, oh, they're doing this or this. So Zelensky has been doing this whole thing. And as soon as Zelensky said that, I said, the Ukrainians are planning to do something to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So Zelensky and his people have been continuing to say that for the past 3 weeks. And it's obvious what their intention is. For their part, the Russians have been saying, yeah, the Ukrainians are going to try and attack the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Now, the Western media doesn't seem as gung-ho about, parroting Zelensky's talking points on this. I'm sure that there are elements within the United States government, in the CIA. Zelensky said it the other day. He said, we have no secrets with the CIA. So there's people who know what they're doing, and they're gonna, I don't know if they're fine with it or what, but if the CIA and the State Department didn't want Zelensky to go through with an attack on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Zelensky wouldn't do it. Zelensky is completely beholden to the United States, to the CIA, to the State Department. They could stop him from doing it if they want. So the United States right now, it looks like to me that there's people within the State Department who are okay with Zelensky causing a nuclear meltdown at Zaporizhzhia. And they think they have enough plausible deniability that it wouldn't have any blowback on the United States. I tend to disagree. If there was an incident caused by the Ukrainians, and everybody will understand when it happens that it's the Ukrainians that were behind it, because the Russians have no actual good reason to destroy or damage their own power plant, which is generating electricity, which would mostly cause the worst fallout would drift over Russian-held territory, over Russian troops even. And, you know, the Russians have no reason to do it because they are winning the war. And Ukraine is losing the war. And even the Western media now is admitting that. I saw an article on one of these stupid fake news sites the other day. I don't know if it's WAPO or USA Today or whatever, but they said, yeah, you know, the Ukrainian counteroffensive, people in NATO are disappointed with the Ukrainian counteroffensive. So Ukraine's losing. Russia has no reason to do this. Just like, you know, in 2018, I think it was, or 17, Syria had no good reason to use chemical weapons on their own people. And that's why we found out later on that they in fact did not do that, that the evidence was planted, that the inspectors were pressured to lie, that their reports were altered, that it was a whole false flag operation. And now everybody knows that. So it looks like they're going to try the same thing with the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. I just don't think that these people in D.C. who are completely detached from reality, completely incompetent, I don't think they understand that, you know, if the worst were to happen there at Zaporizhzhia, the blowback would not be good for the United States. It wouldn't be good for Ukraine. So I don't think they're really thinking this through, but have they thought anything through so far in this war? It seems like, you know, from the very beginning, they didn't really think anything through. So at the end of the day, my opinion is that Russia's probably pretty well prepared for this because, you know, Ukraine's been attacking with artillery the power plant, and with drones even, I think, the power plant for over 6 months, probably like 8 months now. So the Russians have been very, very proactive with the defense. Ukraine's periodically sent commando units over. And Russia understands that the United States wants Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant back in their hands. The United States sent a warning to Russia, a warning to Russia about 4 months ago saying, Russia, that's our data in that power plant. You better not touch it. So Russia understands, and most people should understand, the United States really wants this power plant back. So chances are they're going to let Ukraine try something. But if the worst happens, I don't think it's going to go the way they expect. So, but I think it's unlikely, given that Russia's probably pretty well prepared for any attempt at damaging the power plant. So I think they should have just shut the damn thing off a long time ago, but I don't know how that works. Is that even possible? I don't know. So I am out.